Welcome, everybody. We notice that many people assume that when somebody dies, the only proper option is a traditional funeral, using a funeral home, right? The problem, of course, is that traditional funerals can often cost thousands of dollars. And we know many families can't afford that. They don't have that kind of money, right? And of course, especially if it happens suddenly, if death happens suddenly, families feel pressured to make fast decisions while they're grieving. And that's the hardest time. You have this grief mind that can't do that, right? Some people quietly worry, what happens if someone I love dies and I can't afford the funeral? And others assume that the only alternatives are something impersonal or environmentally harmful. Like it has to be big to make it worth to honor the person.
That's right.
And
so these are real issues, but the real issue isn't that families are unprepared or irresponsible. The issue is that most people were never told about the options that they have.
Right.
There are legal, affordable, and environmentally thoughtful ways that we can handle death amongst our community. And we're finding out more about this these days. Families have far more rights and choices than the funeral industry typically discusses. That's a very key piece. We are making choices without actually all the information.
Yeah.
So once people understand their options, the situations can become a lot less overwhelming. On this episode, we meet with Liz Dunnebacke, whom we have spoken to before. She was with us on season 4, episode 8.
Check it out.
Check it out. And this episode is part of a large effort called a Podcast-Thon, in which thousands of podcasts are helping promote worthy nonprofits and charities, such as Wake, the organization Liz founded in New Orleans. So listen up, because today you're going to find out what happens if you can't afford a funeral, different affordable funeral and green burial options, legal rights and community resources for end-of-life care, who legally controls disposition decisions, what families are allowed to do for themselves, which you might be surprised, and community organizations and nonprofits that support this endeavor.
Yeah. So we hope that by the end of today's episode, or we would say by the end of today's episode, you definitely will understand, hopefully better and more practical options that many families don't ever hear about. We're going to walk through affordable paths, environmentally conscious choices, and the legal rights that you and your family have when somebody dies. So our goal is really simple. We want to help people feel less trapped by the system and give them the information they need to make thoughtful decisions for themselves or the people they love. So stay tuned.
Right. Yes, stay with us.
Welcome, friends. I am the Reverend Wakil David Matthews. We are so honored and happy today to welcome back Liz Dunnebacke. Liz is the founder and executive director of Wake. It's a nonprofit organization that provides information and resources to support meaningful, affordable, and environmentally friendly death care. We actually talked to her earlier in this last year, 2025, and you can hear her episode with us. Season 4, episode 8, another excellent episode, and really beautiful, wonderful stories that she told. And we're glad to have her back. We were recently invited to do a special episode as part of something called Podcast-Thon, which you'll probably... Podcast-Thon, yeah, which you'll hopefully hear more about. We will be sending some stuff out. You should be hearing more about it. It's basically, I think, literally thousands of different episodes going on in podcasts talking about all the wonderful work that's being done in nonprofits and charities. And so when we started thinking about this, we thought, Liz, we should invite Liz back. So really glad to have her back to join us for this episode.
That's right. That's right. And I am the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz. And just to let you know that Liz has served on boards and staff of several New Orleans-based nonprofit organizations in the arts and education. Since 2013, they have worked to develop national resources for sustainable and affordable end-of-life care, serving on the board of the Green Burial Council and forming the Equitable Disposition Alliance. We're excited to share their work and highlight the need for all of us to do our part to support affordability at the end of life for everyone.
Everybody.
No matter their financial or cultural situation.
Yeah.
So I am just so honored that you said yes to coming back and talking to us, Liz. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back. And I'm really honored to be here.
I know in the episode before, one of the things he really emphasized was the way that we really don't understand what happens to people who don't have funding, that don't have the means to be taken care of, and how many people those are. Can you talk more about that, and actually just tell us more about what Wake and the work you're doing in general?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so I started Wake in 2020, and it was a second career for me. I don't know if I ever mentioned that before, but this was not my background. And, I was an amateur, and I was like looking at the death care space and trying to sort of understand what the needs were. And, I first of all, I was casting about for other organizations that might be providing these kinds of services, of which there were none. I mean, not only not locally, but like just providing direct service, like there's almost none still in the country, unless you want to pay for it. And then there's more and more growing resources around that, which is great. But we need more. We need a lot more for everything. So, I was casting about it and I couldn't find anything. And I thought, oh my God, am I going to have to like make this myself? I don't know what I'm doing.
Invent the wheel.
Yes. It's so funny that you said that. And I probably did mention this before, because that was always the analogy. My origin story is my mom dying and going through that process with her. And that was what I thought to myself, like, why is this so hard? Why do I feel like I'm inventing a wheel dealing with somebody dying when everyone dies? So yeah, it was like inventing the wheel. But I thought, well, look, if I keep it really, really grassroots and really small, there's going to be an ongoing need for it, whether it's me doing this forever. You don't want to just start all the red tape of starting up a nonprofit just to be like, I've changed my mind. So I knew, and so we started with a mission that really had like green burial and environmentally friendly disposition in the forefront. And pretty quickly we had to kind of pivot. It's still really part of our, guiding mission, but we had to pivot to what was the biggest crisis in the community. And that was around access. And access is about affordability. So every time somebody dies, they have to face the for-profit funeral industry to greater or lesser degrees, depending on where they are in the country. And here in Louisiana, you gotta pay for every step of the way. By law, a body has to be in the care of a licensed funeral director from death until disposition. What's it like where you guys are?
Oh, it's pretty similar.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same.
I mean, we talked last time, and you had mentioned some of the organizations you're part of, and I hope we'll get to those again. I definitely want to get to those again. In the Washington State area, we have PMA, which is the People's Memorial Association, which is similar idea. It's like, and it started, I don't know how long ago, quite a while ago, when I discovered
the 30s?
My great story around that is I discovered it after my mother died. And I went through the used car salesman operation with the local funeral home. I mean, she had done a really good job of providing and taking care of things, end-of-life stuff, and she had done better than most. But they had a plan that they had paid many years ago, and it ended up with this, at a funeral home. And it was horrible. It was the worst possible thing that I could go through at that point in the grief that I was in, to be hammered away at, well, your mom wouldn't want you to do the cheapest thing, and all this stuff. Thankfully, my wife was with me, and she told him to, she told him where to put it. But but it was the same thing as a used car deal, he says like, well, I know you want this option. I need to go talk to my manager, same thing, same story. Anyway, right after that, somebody introduced me to PMA, to the People's Memorial Association. And since then, I've signed everybody in my whole family up and told everybody about it that lives here in this area. So basically, the difference is that you let them know, you sign up. It's a lifetime membership. You sign up and you let them know what you want to have happen. And they've got a cooperative they've created between funeral homes in the area that have all agreed to this model where it's less expensive and are discounted to some extent, and for any services, and they also support green burial and other choices. But when when the person dies, you call them instead of a funeral home. They do what you ask them to do. They'll give you as much time with the body as you want, up to legal, which I think is 3 days here and in many days. Whatever, they'll let you clean the body, whatever you've chosen. And then when they're done, they take the body, and and the next thing you hear from them is the remains are ready, and that's it. There's no, please buy the biggest funeral, do the biggest thing. It's just very much respect, very, very respectful of a person's space in that time of life. So I really appreciate that. So that's what's happening in our area. At least that's one good example of what's happening. There's also the, for-profit insanity that is here for sure in full blown.
And then everywhere, right, there's just some people who can't afford
any of it.
Even that.
Right.
Yeah, because it's, let's face it, it's like a sudden expense for most people. Most people don't have insurance, and that's across the board. That is across every socioeconomic kind of tranche. You have a real under representation of people who have that insurance, end of life insurance. And because I think that's always posited as like the answer. And I can't tell you how many clients we get who are in this sort of like self-flagellating mode. Like, I thought my mom, I should have. I thought my mom had a policy. And I'm like, oh, honey, like you are not alone. Most people don't.
Well, or they do. And I mean, at this funeral conference last year, there was a woman who was like, that's also scammy.
Yeah.
That's a lot. There's a lot of issues with that, especially with POC.
Yeah.
People of color, yeah.
People of color, yeah. And so I really heard that because the funeral home where I work have really tried to get me to start selling those to my community. And I'm like, I'm not comfortable with that because what happens when this place isn't here? They're like, oh, well, that'll roll over into a bank. And I was like, in those moments of grief, if there's not a posse of people who can go out and like, I'll make these phone calls, you do this. It's generally one person.
Yep.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can't sell this because I actually I can't do this.
When people actually, that's interesting that you say that, because people, when they ask me, what should I do? I don't tell them to get an insurance policy. I tell them to, if you've got the money, put it into an account.
That's right.
That has the person who's going to be and this is the other piece, right, is getting that right of disposition so that this person who, after you die and all the powers of attorney expire, that person has the right to deal with it. Co-title them on the account. And then they can just touch that money when they need to. But that's, not everybody can do it.
Yeah.
And nobody has this like wherewithal to ask these questions. But let me just say this. I have a little quick story for you. I walk alleys in the mornings. I walk my entire hour walking and doing my prayers in alleys. And so I get to do a lot of dumpster diving because stuff is around. And what I do is I find things that people just throw out when they're moving, and I throw it into boxes and I take it to Goodwill, because people in this country throw away incredibly brand new good stuff that they just toss. So last week I saw this little book in the, on the ground, and I was like, they had thrown away like a couple of really pretty leather bound journals that were empty. And just an assortment of things. And I was like, I threw it in a laundry basket that they left. And I was like, I'm going to clean everything. I'm going to take it to the Goodwill or to the mutual aid group that I do on Sundays, because people are happy to get nice things. And these are nice things. So I came home and I cleaned it up. And then I was like, oh, how many pages am I going to tear out? This is what I was given. I got somebody who had somebody die. And they started writing down how much things cost.
Oh my God.
$3,100 for a service.
Yeah.
Transpo $615, $895 for a graveside service, $1,500 for, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming it's a woman. But they're like, just the mortuary charges will be $8,470. She writes down questions that she has.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it goes on, and then it's like, so mortuary charges $8,000, and then the plot $13,000, and then she's the service is like last August or whatever. Total
$22,000. Wow, almost 30.
Oh my God.
$22,000, and she has like questions to do, casket, cold cut platters. This person,
wow, What a great
You know,
example.
her to-do list, scan photos, build slideshows, Spotify
Yes.
playlist,
Oh my God,
items
how
for
great.
display. I don't know who this person is.
They just gave you a perfect primer on like, this is why this is so hard. I mean, there have been so many points in my life. I would say that there's been maybe 2-3 years in my life when I could never afford that price tag.
Yeah.
I would
No.
never. I don't have with combining all the credit cards
Yeah,
between myself
yeah.
and my husband together.
Yes.
We couldn't do that.
Yes.
So it's like, who is expected? And that's obviously like, that's $22,000, but any of it. I mean, I have been in the position with a family member where, okay, we're going to need $1,000 for direct cremation. Well, nobody has $1,000
That's right.
headroom on their credit card.
That's right.
I mean, that's the difference, right?
That's
This isn't just like, and I always like to say this to people because I think there's a little bit of like an understanding that like, oh, these poor people who can't afford funeral services versus all of us.
It's us.
It's everyone.
Us.
This is all of us,
It's all of
it's
us.
just when it happens to arrive and you have to make those platters of cold cuts and,
Wow.
Yeah, and I
so
just
overwhelming.
I was like dumbstruck when I found this and read through it. And I set it up here in my, death and dying bookshelf as a reminder that this is who we're talking to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she may have spent this, maybe people collectively spent this, but it's a travesty to spend that much.
It is.
I mean, it is. And then, there's those for whom this is really important and it's what they do. And, this is a big struggle that I work a lot with my colleague here because, this is a town with really rich, deep death ways.
Right.
And cultural traditions. And some of those traditions are extraordinarily elaborate and expensive. And, it's a big piece of sort of cultural
ritual.
Yeah.
religious ritual to partake in these things. And it's just not ever going to be our place to come forward and be like, well, you shouldn't be spending that kind of money.
Well, this is true. Okay, so this is true. So it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is a spectrum of your desires, what you can afford, what you really value.
Yes.
And it's also the reality that a lot of families would love for their loved one to have something super special.
Yes.
But they can't actually even get the body out of hock.
Right.
Like it's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's almost like on the one hand, you need more options so that there's an option for everybody. You need to normalize it when you can't spend as much as you want to spend.
Yeah.
And then it's got to also be okay that some people do spend that money. And, these are the conversations I have with the funeral homes in my city is like, I mean, I say this to them, like, I'm not coming because, there's a lot of trepidation about, well, what is Wake doing? And why are they always trying to get these prices down? And, we're out there like trying to help families put a GoFundMe together, and telling them like, call the funeral home, calling them that we're still working on it. It's because it takes a while to crowdfund thousands of dollars. And, there's a little bit of like, of a wary relationship. And I'm always like, look, this again, it's a growth business. More people are coming. There's room for everyone. And there will always be a place for those $20,000, $30,000 homegoings in this town. Always.
Yeah.
It's just that for every one of those, I've got 10 people who can't get a basic disposition.
Yeah.
So we have to have something for everybody.
Yeah. That's such an important thing. And a couple of things you said last time that I think are really important for all of our listeners to hear again was, first of all, that part about who's going to be able to do the disposition for you, who's going to have the rights of disposition.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that is often the case that people say, well, I've given this person the power of attorney, but
different
power of attorney goes away when you die. That was something that I was surprised about. And so there is a specific thing that you should have in your advanced care directive. And really all of this just speaks to preparing ahead of time and talking about it ahead of time, which is our mission, of course, to get this out to people, having this conversation, because if it's not done, then you're stuck where many of your people are stuck. They expected there to be something in place, expected somebody to have taken care of this, and there's nothing there. And so even if they've had a power of attorney for their financial or their health care, that power of attorney goes away when they die, and then there's nobody, that person is not able to make the decisions about how their body is disposed, disposition, the body disposition.
Yeah.
And so that's a special piece that needs to be included. And you said that you guys have special language for that, and I think others do too. But the other thing that brings up, and we talked about, and I'd like to have a little more about that, is when that's not taken care of, the default is your immediate family. And I'm sure you've had cases, and I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the cases where the immediate family is totally inappropriate.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's part of this sort of like this journey for me of realizing that this death care is really just health care.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much that was sort of on that soapbox last time we spoke, but
no, we talked about that. I love that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, because I think I said, like until disposition happens, you've got a body.
Yeah.
And healthcare is what deals with bodies.
Right.
So I would like to see that, healthcare extended all the way until disposition happens, but it doesn't. But in the same sense, it kind of it defaults to the same, I say like medical ethics that are at work in healthcare. And healthcare also is a place where people are disenfranchised because because of where they might or might not fall in the legal next of kin hierarchy.
Yeah,
that's right.
In healthcare, you're legal next of kin. And I don't know if next of kin changes, like the order changes from state to state. I know what it is in my state.
It's like spouse or children, then
parent. And of course, it's always like a majority of your children have to decide, which already it's like,
that's already a problem.
If you have 2 kids, you really might not have any agreement.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so a lot of people don't have that, and I mean, so we do see this happen all the time. We have people who are life partners of somebody and they have been into the hospital for procedures or as the person was getting sick or through their cancer treatments or whatever. They were the healthcare proxy, right? They had the medical power of attorney. So they were making all those decisions for years.
Yeah.
And
then they're like,
and then what happens is when that person dies, then they go to the funeral home to make the decision and, about disposition, and the funeral home says, I'm sorry, were you legally married? And if they're not legally married, then these are one of these protections, right, that legal marriage affords. And then it's like, I'm sorry, we can't speak to you. We can't help you. We've got to go with legal next of kin. And then you really are on this journey. I mean, we just had a client recently who the daughter was trying to bury her mother. She was trying to cremate her mother, and her mother had been married years before and had never officially gotten divorced. Nobody had heard from this guy in 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't know if he was alive or dead, what state he lived in, where he was, but the daughter couldn't proceed with making disposition arrangements for her mother because there was a spouse somewhere in theory.
My God.
That is such a horror story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time,
My God.
So it's real. And no one knows this. I mean, what kills me is that like we tell this, we talk to like hospice and palliative care nurses and social workers, and they don't know this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if they don't know it, working where they do at this intersection, you can bet that no one, globally, people really don't understand.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And I think estate lawyers are often savvy about this, and they often will include this language in wills and, kind of end of life paperwork. But the problem is that stuff all gets kind of, a will is usually
lumped.
Disposition
Yes,
usually
it's
happens
not
before
right.
a will is read.
Right.
And so
right.
there's some decisions that really need to be pulled out and made available and known to people, and people are empowered to make those decisions before, an estate is like settled out.
Yeah. Did you find with that you needed a specific language that said this person is in charge of the disposition of the body, rather than in most of the advanced care directives, there's somebody who's the healthcare agent, but not necessarily a power of attorney. but they're called the healthcare agent. And it says in the ones that we've used that this person has the right to decide, or it can follow my wishes as far as my disposition.
That's great. So yeah, and I think my program manager, I think, just found that like California's got a really great healthcare directive, like living will, that actually includes that language as well.
Okay.
That's the obvious way to do it, because you're making these decisions and it's just one more step. We didn't find anything in Louisiana that had that, so we created an independent, like a standalone form. But yeah, I think that the best way to do it is to like make kind of a comprehensive document, and people can just check off what's relevant to them. For many people, it's not an issue, obviously, if your next of kin is the person you want making those decisions. And, you know.
Hopefully. Well, and since this goes out internationally even, it's a really good thing for everybody who's listening to think about and find out about in your area where you live. What will it take for somebody to be able to honor your wishes for the disposition of your body? And or I think we talked about this last time. Are you willing to just say, I trust you, I won't be here. You can do whatever you want.
Well, and I was listening to our episode, and that was when I talked about my kids really had a very different opinion about how to dispose of a body. So I was like, I'm going to have to decide and then just be like, do the thing. Okay. So don't think about it. Don't overthink it.
Yes. Well, that brings up such a good point, because like funerals are so, I mean, so, we can go on. My programs manager and I we love like, are we supporting the dying person or the family? Is the funeral for the dead person or is it for the family? I mean, at least in some large part, it's for the remaining, the people remaining.
Right. The grievers.
Yes, the grievers. And so if those people are locked out, if they're disenfranchised, if they're cut out of that process because of a legality, that's really a tragic outcome that hopefully can be avoided. But yeah, there's no doubt that like you might want something, your kid wants something else. And, you know, I have all these desires, and I think I may have said that like at the end, I just write, just do whatever you need to do. I'll be dead, you know?
Well, you said the same thing last time too. And I said, I had the same thought. I was like, I'm dead. I don't care. Like whatever serves the two kids, they're my family. But I brought this up last time, was that they were both having a conversation about how to dispose of our cat's body, even though the cat actually belonged to my daughter, but my son had something to say about it. And so they spent like, an hour discussing like disposal of bodies. And, and I was listening to the whole conversation thinking, I don't want them to spend the time like talking about that at that point. Like, Mom said to do this. Let's just go forward. Let's just do it. Right. And that way they can just do my thing and they can carry on. And I was shocked because I assumed wrongfully that the easiest thing would be like a cremation, like just go do the thing. But there are values set inside of these two very different people who I was a portal for. And I don't want to bring them grief and
they got plenty of
rancorous.
Yeah, they got plenty of things to argue about without that.
Like, who's going to keep my toys?
Another good reason to write things down. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we talk about in our class a lot, or in our conversations here too. Is the more conversation we can have around this, the more you can normalize this conversation, destigmatize it, the better it's going to be in the end. The more likely that what you wish is going to happen will happen, because that will have been normalized. It will have been talked about, and it's not something brand new that they have to go, well, wait, what do we do now?
Right.
So,
or somebody's like, wait, did she say that, or do I remember differently? Or do you know what I mean? But there's been plenty of conversations so that there will be like it'll be a neural pathway.
Yeah, and it's written down.
It's right.
And kept up to date too. So Liz, tell us, I guess, since we're getting close to the end of our time, I'd love to hear more about just kind of the extended. You've got other organizations that you're part of, the Green Burial Council and some others. Kind of the bigger picture, and then how people can get involved. What your call to action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Wake is, as I said, really very local, kind of a hyper local organization. We're very grassroots, and we've been. Because so much of death care is circumscribed by laws, we like to say that, and the publications we put out and things that we make available are really helpful for anybody in the state of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And some stuff is general, but really, we're pretty local. But as we worked on the issue of like what happens if you can't pay for funeral expenses, which is the technical term for that is indigent death, usually for most coroner's offices and medical examiners' offices. We realized that this was a crisis across the U.S. and that nobody knew about it. And so we joined forces with a group of people in Boston, in Massachusetts, who were working on this issue, thinking about it locally and knew about what was going on locally, and then a woman out in California, and we created this kind of a working group called the Equitable Disposition Alliance, the EDA, and we actually just launched a very fledgling, it's very sort of first version of a database where you can actually, for now, you can look up, but we hope that people will kind of crowdsource this information of what happens if you can't afford disposition in your region. What happens to the body? How long is it held? Who holds it? Are there funds available for you? Are there not? Can a family reclaim? Do they cremate or do they bury? It's called the Equitable Disposition Database, and or the Regional Equitable Disposition Database. And so that's kind of a fledgling project that we really hope will grow, and people will be able to source this information because it changes from county to county across the U.S. I mean, what they do in New Orleans, for example, in Orleans Parish, is totally different than what they do in Jefferson Parish, which is just the very next adjacent county over. We call them parishes here. So that's really an important tool. And I really hope that everybody will start to look into what happens in their region when somebody can't afford private funeral services. And then I think that there's a need to look at the funeral industry and see if we can start to advance some alternatives to this sort of private death care model, either extending the healthcare model so that it includes disposition, or, I don't know, launching some more nonprofit or co-op funeral homes that can provide much more affordable solutions for people. So that's the kind of stuff I really love to see happen. And, Wake, we work on these issues with partners across the country, in addition to doing our work locally. We hope everybody will get involved to the extent that they can in their communities, because that's how we get this done. It's going to be communities coming together and sort of advocating for change.
Well, we'll definitely add that in the notes again, and the links to all that. That's great. What a wonderful database. What a great idea.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And last time you encouraged every listener to find out what goes on in our local communities with our indigent bodies. And I reached out to the Denver coroner.
Great.
Didn't hear back for like 6 weeks. And they're like, we're really slammed with work. We don't they really wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah.
But I did go down a little rabbit hole and was like, I recognized that they actually post the pictures of everybody who hasn't been claimed.
Oh.
And I was like, that's kind of both traumatic and good. I don't know. Because, if you're missing somebody, you would go there to look for your person.
Right.
But if you can't pull your person out, that's where you go to look at your person, right?
Exactly.
It's a really fascinating. And I was trying to reach out, but they're like, if you want to volunteer, I'm like, oh my Lord, I do not need another volunteer job.
I mean, honestly, based on my experience, you're lucky to have spoken to anybody at all. Almost of our volunteers were completely ghosted. They are overburdened. They're overloaded, but they also don't want to take the lid off this. They rightly understand that people are going to be outraged when they understand what's going on with all these people. So, we've got to start people have to know this is what's happening.
Yes, I should reach out again. And, I did it from a perspective of like curiosity, because I'm a citizen and like, what is happening? I'm a chaplain. That feels like, I want to.
Something we should know.
Yeah.
Well, we should encourage everybody to read, to check out what Wake is doing, and the other things that Liz has shared with us today, and that that as they say, there's so much that we can all do, and it really does always, as always, come down to local, support, mutual aid kind of ways of being. That's all we can do, and it's the best we can do. And so thank you once again for your inspiration. And I think it's really, we really look forward to more people understanding this and more people finding ways to take care of this. We'd love to hear from folks too. If you find out in your area, or if you want to connect with us or with Liz, please do get in touch. We'd love to kind of continue to expand this, local, but needs to be, we can support each other everywhere, even though it needs to be local. So,
and I would encourage people to just stay curious. Like, I know that in the day-to-day, people may not have these thoughts about what does happen to folks who can't afford a funeral. But here we are having this conversation, and it behooves us as brothers and sisters across the board to be like, it matters.
It does,
what is going on? And maybe you give it 30 seconds thought, maybe you give it 30 minutes, but just stay curious.
Or maybe like Liz, you make it your life.
You do, but I love that too, because one thing that this work has taught me is that there is no one way to do this. These choices and preferences and predilections are so culturally inscribed. And it's almost like you start to see, oh, there's all these different ways of looking. I mean, it's always yes and, right? So there's all these different, there's room for everyone here, really. And, even the funeral directors working in the belly of the beast, some of these people are wonderful, incredibly gracious and gifted at working with people in these really difficult times. So there's a lot going on all around you that you may not even be seeing you.
That's right.
Yeah, we've met some really amazing funeral workers who are really trying to make a difference. So once you start reaching out and making this a part of your life, you'll find there's a community out there. So thank you again so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us.
Liz.
Thank you both.
Conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.